Gas.
I'll open the windows.
I'll turn it off at the mains.
Hello, gas emergency service. We've got a gas leak. No!
Even a light switch turned on or off can ignite escaping gas. See our advertisement in the papers. It could save your life.
Book now at any Thomas Cook shop and save up to an amazing £50 per person off your summer holiday. Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it.
Get your skates on! The Co-op Winter Sale is now on with huge price cuts in all departments. Sale now on at Co-op Westwood and Faversham and Sheerness Co-op Homemakers.
If you're searching for a new family hatchback, you'll find that your local Seat dealer is now offering the award-winning Seat Ibiza 1.5 GL and GLX at an attractively small interest rate. And not one, not two, but 3 full years in which to pay it back. The Seat Ibiza 1.5, a great way to shrink your motoring costs. Ask your Seat dealer.
Tissues. Softness is our strength.
Tonight on TVS, the premiere of No Sex Please, We're British.
No, definitely yours, Brian, definitely. It's your new thingamajigs for your scout troop.
Thingamajigs?
Yes, they rub them together in the woods.
Do you know something, Brian? You've got nice hands. They belong on a woman.
What? Don't be rude. Now, come on. They're films. Films? For one awful moment, I thought they were... Oh, my God, they're blue films.
Oh, no.
The premiere of the smash hit farce, No Sex Please, We're British. Tonight at 8 on TVS.
And earlier on this evening, following the latest news and sports, we'll be joining Bob Holness for Blockbusters. This is TVS.
The news from ITN.
The dollar falls again to record lows east and west. Russians call Reagan a hypocrite over Afghanistan. Zeebrugge ferry goes adrift on her way to the scrapyard. And Arsenal falter as Liverpool gallop away. All over Europe, where the money markets are operating today, the banks are doing their best to stop the headlong fall of the American dollar. The day began with the US currency at its lowest in Tokyo since the Second World War. Europe woke up to more record dollar lows, and New York's Wall Street lost 2.5% in half an hour.
The dollar's troubled day began in the Far East, where Japanese traders decided the Americans would do nothing to prop up their battered currency. For a time, the dollar traded at its lowest level since modern exchange rates were established in the 1940s. Support from the Bank of Japan served only to slow the slide. The dollar's battering continued when the European markets opened. It hit all-time lows against a number of currencies. West Germany's Bundesbank led the European attempts to prop up the flagging currency. The Germans are thought to have bought over $200 million. This afternoon, all eyes turned to see which way Wall Street would go. The answer was down. The dollar's collapse reversed the pre-Christmas rally in share prices. In the first half hour's trading, the Dow Jones index dipped more than 50 points. Some market makers say automatic computer selling accelerated the downward trend. The City of London is still on holiday and will have to wait until tomorrow to give its verdict on the latest dollar slide and share price falls. In the run-up to Christmas, share prices in London saw a steady rise. Hopes that the rally would continue into early 1988 may prove to have been premature.
The Russians have accused President Reagan of hypocrisy in calling on the Soviet Union to end the fighting in Afghanistan. The Soviet news agency TASS said Washington was trying to spark full-scale war by supplying the rebel troops with Stinger missiles. Earlier, Afghan government troops, backed by Soviet forces, claimed an important victory at cost and said they'd reopened road links to the provincial capital of Gardez.
The Russians have been battling to break the siege of Khost ever since they marched into Afghanistan 8 years ago. A garrison town in a region controlled by Afghan rebels, it's important tactically and symbolically to both sides. These American pictures shown on Russian TV. Tonight, TASS, the Russian news agency, said that Washington was trying to provoke full-scale war in the country by supplying Stinger missiles to Afghan rebels. The Russians claim they have broken through. The rebels admit there is some truth in that, but say Soviet forces are still 6 miles from the town. Russian television last night carried a report showing state security agents discovering a cache of arms, intended, the report said, for use in an attack today on the Soviet embassy in the city. Otherwise, the streets of the capital appeared quiet on this anniversary of the occupation. In the world's capitals, though, Afghan exiles took to the streets in their thousands, here in Islamabad, calling for an end to Soviet intervention in Afghanistan.
A teacher from Suffolk has been sentenced to death in Burma for getting his Burmese cook to kill his wife. Thomas Andrew Kirkpatrick and his cook were both convicted by the court at Insane. The British Embassy say the situation is very delicate. Mrs. Kirkpatrick died 2 weeks after arriving in Rangoon to join her husband, who was teaching English there. In the last 40 years in Burma, the death sentence has only been carried out on one foreigner. In South Africa, 8 black people have been killed in the township violence around Pietermaritzburg, including a 7-year-old child and an elderly woman who were burned to death in their home. Police said they'd shot one man dead. In all, 32 people have now died in the violence over the Christmas holiday. The Zeebrugge ferry, in which 189 people died in March, has broken its tow line and is drifting off the South African coast. The Herald of Free Enterprise was being taken to Taiwan, where it was to be used as scrap. It broke free in hurricane force winds.
The Herald of Free Enterprise was being towed with another British ferry down the west coast of Africa. But the vessels ran into hurricane force winds near South Africa and the tow rope snapped. Both ferries broke free from the tug and all attempts to resecure them have failed. The tug captain has radioed his position ashore to Port Elizabeth. He says he'll have to wait until the storm subsides before the tow rope can be reconnected. The Herald of Free Enterprise is still rolling in heavy seas. Last March, it capsized off Zeebrugge with the loss of 189 lives. The ferry had left port with its bow doors open. The captain and 2 members of the crew were found guilty of serious negligence.
Israeli lawyers representing 800 Palestinians arrested during the disturbances on the West Bank and Gaza Strip say the detainees will not get a fair trial. The prisoners are taken under military escort to improvised courtrooms in Israeli army camps. One group of lawyers made a public protest.
A judicial system of martial trials is not a judicial system. I'm very sorry to say it.
At the moment, we'll feel that we are serving the authorities by being there and playing the part of a lawyer more than we serve our clients. We will not do it.
The Bishop of Ripon is refusing to ordain practicing homosexuals or to give them jobs. The Right Reverend David Young explains his reasons in a monthly letter to his diocese. But he says there'll be no bar on homosexuals who are not practicing. His decision comes a month after the General Synod decided not to get rid of gay clergy. Christmas helplines set up by Thames and London Weekend Television, Capital Radio and community volunteers in London has been swamped by calls over the weekend. And the calls have been coming in all day today.
The staff of volunteers at Christmas Line have been rushed off their feet, fielding as many as 5,000 calls a day since the lines opened on Christmas Eve. Most of the calls have been requests to find doctors, dentists or chemists to cope with the inevitable domestic crises that crop up over the festive season. But skilled professional advice has also been on hand from the Samaritans to help the hundreds of people who can't cope with the loneliness and depression that also comes for many at Christmas.
We've had a lot of people calling us because they're having a rather miserable time at Christmas. I think there's a general myth that everybody enjoys themselves at Christmas, which is quite untrue. We have a lot of support from the Samaritans, and we have Samaritan volunteers on the shift all the time. And they will take those calls and talk to the person as long as is necessary to reassure them and to comfort them.
Not all the calls have been so serious, though. One man called in to find out where he could buy spare parts for a helicopter on Christmas Day. Another to find out how he could feed his Christmas present, a pet lobster. David Chater, ITN, Central London.
The body of a newborn baby boy has been found on the banks of a Humber estuary at Hessel. It was wrapped in a black plastic bin liner. Police are now trying to find the mother. They think she needs urgent medical attention. Now today's sport. There was a full Football League programme today with Liverpool trying to stretch their lead at the top of the First Division. With the details, Mark Austin.
Liverpool go into the second half of the season 10 points clear in the First Division after beating Newcastle 4-0 at Anfield. Steve McMahon got the first after just 4 minutes and John Aldridge 2 more, one from the penalty spot. Ray Houghton got the fourth. In second place, 10 points behind, is Nottingham Forest, who beat Coventry 4-1. But it was a bad day for Arsenal, who went down 3-1 at Wimbledon, their second defeat in 3 days. After the match, Wimbledon's manager Bobby Gould cracked open the champagne to celebrate an historic win.
It began as a Christmas comedy with a blunder by Besant that ranks alongside the all-time goalkeeping greats. Hardly had the embarrassment faded when Arsenal went ahead through Quinn's first goal of the season. It was a lead they held until half-time, but then Wimbledon used the swirling wind to send Arsenal into a spin. Within 2 minutes, Cork headed the equaliser. And a minute later, Thomas was handing out seasonal offerings, a disastrous pass, a leak in the offside trap, and Wise put Wimbledon ahead.